Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 136. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Friday, Steelers Nation Day. Pittsburgh wrapping up their first week of OTAs. They'll be back out there next week, the next couple weeks in through June. So 1 week into the spring workouts, and obviously not going to proclaim about how well the team looked overall, but everyone seems healthy and a lot of good quotes. And so things seem pretty solid right now.
Not with the Pirates.
Not with the Pirates. Yeah. I
have become resigned to the fact that I'm probably not going to live long enough to see another world championship. I was fortunate enough to, at an early age, see a couple of those with the We Are family and all like that. But man, they even get the pitching now and can't. The bullpen can't hold it, and they pull you back in for a couple of games, and then they have what happened the last couple of games against the Giants. Hey, they can't blame any of this on you this time, which is good there. But anyway, it is football in short. Season continues on here, and I think we've got a couple of interesting nuggets to come out of that to discuss today, and we'll probably go down a couple other rabbit holes here to kind of wind up the weekend. So where would you like to start?
Let's start with the signing that Pittsburgh made yesterday, adding running back La'Mical Perine to their offseason roster, the second veteran running back the team assigned this week, beginning with Jonathan Ward on Tuesday, who was in rookie minicamp with the team on a veteran basis, and then adding Perine, former fourth-round pick of the New York Jets in 2020, played his college ball at Florida, was most recently with the Kansas City Chiefs, winning I think two of them actually, with the Chiefs the last couple of seasons. So more running back depth, more veterans added. Some people are wondering and asking, why are they adding so many veteran running backs, Dave?
Yeah, it just comes down to that. You need to build out a 90-man roster, which this team still does not have, right?
They're at 89, correct?
And running back's a position. You got a couple of obvious. You got guys that are going to make the roster. In Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren and Cordero Patterson, and how much work outside of getting the offense installed and stuff like that do you really need out of those guys? And you always want to be prepared in case of injury, and you're going to have to have a couple of practice squad guys, and obviously they got the kid out of Georgia. Undrafted free agent that they'll continue to take a hard look at. But, this is just kind of filling out a depth chart and getting some guys with some experience in there. Obviously, a lot of these guys are probably not going to make the 53-man roster. But once again, you're going to need guys on the practice squad. So, I think that's the best way to kind of explain that away. And you also don't know if someone might be dealing with a hamstring or something along those lines that maybe, required an additional move here. But Perine was a kid that was just let go by the Chiefs, I think, about 5 or 6 days ago. So it's going to be a minimum salary on him, just as it was with Ward. And, you just move forward from there. We'll see how long they last on the roster.
Sure, you said it well. Some people have asked and speculated, is this somehow related to Najee? No, it's not. This is related to training camp depth, and in a year where you have, as you said, established starters and guys on your roster, and Harris and Warren and Patterson, who's 33, those guys are probably not going to get a ton of work. Maybe a little additional work for Harris and Warren, given the newness for the offense, but it's the same running backs coach, it's the same offensive line coach, and really, no matter what Arthur Smith calls, Harris and Warren have probably run it because they've run every sort of run scheme the last 2 years under Coach Meyer and Coach Faulkner. So it's not going to be anything that radically different, I'm sure, for Harris or for Warren. You get in the training camp, live tackling sessions. Harris will be protected. I imagine Warren will have more protection this year, probably not get tackled and be subject to hits as often, given that he's now established there really isn't anything else for him to prove in his third year. Just like Harris in his third year last year, they became very careful with his workload. So you need guys to be able to shoulder that for depth, for a run-based team, and to have some experience, and guys that have kind of been there, done that is always good. And Ward, who's versatile, and Perine, who's got a bit more of a run game pedigree than Jonathan Ward. So go into camp, see how these guys look. Obviously, the top 3 running back spots seem pretty much set in stone, but practice squad, as you said, is up for grabs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, we'll see how long these guys stick around.
Give me a quick salary cap update. Let's start early here with the salary cap update. You had a post, I think, 2 days ago on where this team is currently at, where they could be. Give us an update.
Yeah, where they sit currently, and we're waiting on some of these contracts to come in for like Ward and Perine, but those should be fairly easy to predict. I would think that they're going to be veteran benefit deals on those guys with no signing bonuses. The NFLPA is still running a couple of days behind, but they do now have all the draft picks under contract there, and that matched my update from a couple of days ago. So at least on paper, it looks like the Steelers are 18,819,500 under the cap at this point. Obviously, with 2 draft picks in Troy Fautanu and Zach Frazier, not under contract at this time here, but we'll see how much, if any, that shifts on some of the. Look, if they use any salary cap space whatsoever in their rule of 51 on Ward or Perine, it's not going to be much of anything at all there. Now, when you do look at what's still outstanding when it comes to the 2 draft picks there and what you're going to have to accommodate with Fautanu and Frazier, let me pull it up real quick. What the offsets are going to be on that. Look, you still got to have a $4 million practice squad that's going to eat a little bit of space. You still have, let's see, the offset right now for Fautanu and Zach Frazier would be $2.139 million that you'd have to accommodate. You still have to have the 52nd and 53rd player on the roster later. That's another $1.59 million. I think the NFLPA stopped implementing the actual placeholder amount for the workout bonus off-season charge. That on paper is $907,200 until the real number comes in. Once the real number comes in, that's generally a couple of $100,000 lower than the placeholder amount, but it's still a kind of a $500,000 plus charge that's coming once that happens. We already have one guy on IR at this point, and I guess that's something else to really hit on. Keelan Harris, as we expected, cleared waivers. He reverted to IR on a split salary. We'll now wait for the next 6 days or whatever to see if they reach an injury settlement with him. This team will probably carry right around $6 million in free salary cap space come the start of this season for in-season moves. I've got a $2 million placeholder in addition to that. Should the IR list stack up in any way whatsoever there, but plenty of salary cap space right now in nearly 19 million under to work with for the remainder of the offseason here. We'll see what happens with, obviously moving forward with a Pat Freiermuth extension, what's going to happen with Najee Harris, what's going to happen with, obviously, Cameron Hayward. Any extension with Cameron Hayward's probably going to lower his salary cap number in 2024. And, what other surprises might be out there? Are they going to do anything with Justin Fields and that contract? And I wrote a post yesterday too, and just a reality of looking at this wide receiver room Alex, from where this team sits right now. I don't, it's not a Captain Obvious statement, I don't think by me, but when you just look at it on paper, this team, it sure seems like this team could use another veteran wide receiver. We've been talking about that a lot this offseason. They've got cash wise, when you look at the players under contract, that room, the wide receiver room, totals up. And this is even with Keelan Harris on a split salary right now. And we'll see how much longer that lasts. $12 million, almost $12.5 million in cash outlay for 2024 for the wide receiver room. And you got a rookie in Roman Wilson that leads the charge in that department. And that's because of the signing bonus, obviously, that they have given him a little over $900,000 there. You cannot build an offseason wide receiver room from a cash expenditure standpoint really any cheaper than that right now. Mm-hmm. And it will be interesting. We've talked about cap room. We've talked about cash outlay. There's room to do it. The thing is that the list of players to do it with, to add from the outside, has obviously gotten shorter and shorter over the offseason. The free agent route, I mean, is there really anybody out there unsigned at this point that really moves the needle for you?
I'm pausing here. You got a little quiet. You still sounded clear, but I heard you shift. And okay, I'm hearing you shift now. It sounded like you moved away from your microphone.
Okay, I just moved it back. So.
Okay, yeah, you're good now.
Okay,
I'll pick it back up. Yeah, Dave, we've been over this before in terms of available free agents, and that pool has dried up even more since the draft. And I think the top name you would argue is Michael Thomas, and that comes with a lot of baggage in terms of health and just reliability, availability concerns. So short answer, everyone knows there's really nothing that attractive in free agency right now.
So it leads you to believe that if this team does anything, it would be via a trade, at least anything from a move the needle standpoint. And that's really been the look at this thing for several weeks now, to be honest with you. And I really think, if you believe that DK Metcalf, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel really are just and have been pipe dreams all along, or at this point are pipe dreams, then to me it really kind of leaves you with three kind of reasonable candidates for a potential trade. And that would be Cortland Sutton, Juwan Jennings, and Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton, I guess, would be a needle mover. He doesn't move the needle for me as much as, say, a Cortland Sutton or a Juwan Jennings does. But we'll see. June 1st is a week away, right?
Right.
It would make sense after. Look, Cortland Sutton's not at OTAs for the Broncos. Juwan Jennings is not at OTAs for the 49ers. And Darius Slayton is not at OTAs for the Giants. So I would contend that those three would be if the Steelers were to trade for any wide receiver that moves the needle at this point, it feels like it would be one of those three guys. But yeah, you can't. Will it happen? Who knows?
Sure. We'll keep you posted. That's for sure. June 1st, as you said, becomes a line where that conversation may pick back up. All right, Dave, to jump back here into OTA talk for the Steelers coming off this first week. Some interesting tidbits. And again, we're not really too focused on evaluating who played well and who didn't play well because, A, we're not there, and B, it's still football in shorts. And the evaluation aspect is difficult to do at this time of the season. But one interesting note, again, we talk about where are guys lining up, who's running first team, what position are guys lining up. And Ryan Watts, the team's 6th-round pick, their final selection in the 2024 NFL draft, according to the Trib's Chris Adamski, has been working essentially exclusively at safety during practice. He was a college corner at Ohio State and then transferred to Texas, only 9 career snaps at safety per PFF. but has been playing safety throughout the spring. He says he's still working with the cornerbacks after practice, going through cornerback drills. Has said the team has not told him he will definitely be a safety full-time. They just want to get him the safety reps to kind of get him up to speed as a potential and possible transition. I know Draft Nicks considered Watts as a potential conversion guy coming out. We didn't know Pittsburgh would try to stick with him at corner, given the rare size and length. Pittsburgh gravitating towards that with Porter and Trice, Darius Rush. So the word is right now safety for Ryan Watts.
At least we got some movement there, right? A little kind of, I don't want to say finality there, but that's why you list him as a DB coming out of the draft, because there was that talk about, maybe safety or maybe corner or whatnot. But I would expect him to continue on this path at safety at this point.
Where do you think he has a better chance to make the roster from? And
safety.
Maybe you think safety, because corner, I mean, it's such a mix of just young guys that are not proven. And safety, you do have Minkah, Elliott, Killebrew, and I think Casey would have a better chance of making the team than Watts would. So then it comes down to that fifth spot with Trenton Thompson.
Yeah, but and Thompson's still kind of coming off of that neck thing, and Casey obviously older. Watts could give you that special teams aspect there. So I really and Killebrew, you don't really want Killebrew out there if you can help it. I mean, obviously he's got the experience and all. But I think for several factors, I think special teams being one of them. I think, if he progresses, if he can make enough progress as a safety throughout the remainder of the offseason, that might just make Casey expendable for you.
Yeah, I thought about that potentially, but I think it would have to require a lot of progress. I think there's comfort in Casey, and the experience, the versatility will likely be the 60B as things stand right now. It may be tough for Watts to do that out of the gate. I think ultimately, to answer my own question or really not answer it, is probably it may not matter as long as you play well in special teams, whether you're a corner or a safety, you probably have a path there. And there's going to be a need for coverage guys, replacing the two gunners that were lost in free agency, Miles Boykin and James Pierre. So I think corner is more interesting because there's just not a lot of guys that have spots spoken for you. Porter, Dante Jackson, those are the only two corners you could basically call locks to make this team, right? So that may give Watts the edge. You're fighting other young corners like Trice, like Rush, B.D. Bishop, Josiah Scott. We're getting in the slot versus outside, but just a general cornerback room as a whole. I thought with Watts, I thought maybe they still play him a corner. I think there's some attractive traits there. And I thought he was even fluid in some moments, but our Clayton Ecker did a study that showed metrically he really struggled in terms of just, some of the successful passes thrown at him and completion rate and quarterback rating against. They were really unfavorable to Ryan Watts. I just thought there was that tightness on those in-breaking routes and that lack of long speed that hurt him. But I wonder if he will get maybe some corner reps, because there is that really attractive profile of him being that long press type of corner that Pittsburgh has been collecting under Omar Khan.
I tell you, one thing that does not lack in his tape is the physicality.
Right. I think he certainly can make the switch to safety. He's got size, he's got physicality, and you can live with the lack of, long speed when you're playing safety and you kind of have more off coverage. You're playing deep half. You don't have to turn and run with these guys. So, he certainly could make that switch if he can get some of the, just technique down. Could he be a guy that matches up on tight ends and sub packages as a, upside type of role? That's potential in terms of where this thing may go this year, later this year, next year. So we'll see. But right now it is at safety for Ryan Watts.
And he might even be longer than long. Adamski said he was standing out next to him, I think yesterday on Thursday. And what did he say? He might be everything bit of like 6'5" or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, there's an official weigh in. He came in 6'0", right. So I'm gonna trust the official weigh in on that. But he's a big guy, no question.
Those arms, man.
Yeah.
You see that of him touring the Steelers Hall of Fame and going up against that wingspan graphic and all. I mean, if it's not evident there, you just look at some of these pictures that are floating around from OTAs and all, and I mean, those arms I mean, those were not mismeasured. I'll tell you that there. And I mean, just his overall, I mean, even if his length is what it was at the combine, which was, what was that again?
34 and a half, the same as Fautano, and just a little shorter than Broderick Jones. So
no, I'm talking about the height.
The height. Yeah. 602.7, I believe, was his official weigh-in.
So almost 6'3", right? So
yeah, 6'3".
And what's Adamski saying? He might be every bit of 6'4", 6'5", or something.
Yeah, I think he made a comment about how big he looked in person. So, but either way, whether you want to call him 6'3", 6'5", I mean, he is 6'3", 200 something, 34 and a half inch arms. That is a well put together defensive back.
All right. So look, I mean, you're looking at a depth guy here. Obviously, you're just trying to figure out what all he can do. And I would imagine the lines, at least at the outside corner positions, seem to be fairly long. They're a lot shorter inside, obviously, there. And you know, if you can work on his transition to more of a, you know, make him a lot more position flexible. And then if he can show out on special teams and be a core guy for you there, that's obviously going to help his cause. And, you know, the hope is that you don't have to see him on the field positionally on defense as a rookie. But if he at least can give you something to work with there and be a guy maybe to get a helmet and play on special teams, and what more do you want out of your last draft pick, right?
Right. And I think he's got the skill set and the traits to become an effective special teamer as long as he's good above the neck. And I have no reason to believe that he would not be, with just his overall size, the physicality, the tackling. I think he can go down there and cover pretty well.
All right. So we'll watch how that continues on the rest of the summer positionally with him.
From a rookie to a guy going into his third season, and a very crucial one at that, defensive lineman DeMarvin Leal speaking with the media, and I think he understands this is make or break 2024 for him. He's a guy that has not performed well, has frankly been a bust his first 2 years, regressed last year, lost his hat to Loudermilk down the stretch, has not really come along, still always been more athlete than football player, and really, honestly, his run defense has become even better than his pass rush, but neither have been where it needs to be overall. I think he was talking with the Post-Gazette and saying, it's time. This is the time I have to break out. He's confident it will happen. He says he's focused on his technique, which is certainly going to be the big thing for him. But, you know, reality is, and he understands it, this is make or break for DeMarvin Leal.
I think he also, Fittipaldo said that they want him to get up to 290 and to 290 to 295, right? And that he's right now, about 288, but said that he came out of the combine a little heavy. He thought it sure didn't look it. He carried it well.
What did he weigh in coming out? I'm going to look it up now. What was his weight coming out of the combine?
Wasn't he like 283 or something?
He came out, 283.
He needs to put on that weight, and he needs to play with it.
Yeah, I mean, 288 versus 290, 295, not a significant difference overall. I know he's always kind of been a tweener and moved around at A&M and got moved around his rookie year, but last year, I mean, the reporting was last year that he came in overweight, so maybe weight's just been an issue generally being too high or too low. I really can't speak to some of the specifics on that, but either way, the tape has not been good. And
at any point since he was drafted, and really even in his college tape, did he look like he weighed 283, 285?
I'm trying to think back.
He didn't to me. He's never looked it, you know.
Yeah, I'm trying. I think when he first got to Pittsburgh, when I watched him in training camp his rookie year, he looked, relatively heavy. And then I know he had to drop weight once Watt went down, and they tried to play him a bit more on the edge. And that was difficult, to be fair to him. He had the knee surgery too, I think meniscus tear, and missed a month. So there were a lot of issues his rookie season. I was willing to give him some grace on that. But last year was the year where, okay, year behind you, we're going to have a more settled position. They did use him as a more defined and true defensive lineman, and things only got worse, to be honest with you.
Boy, how big of a plus would that be if he makes the jump?
Yeah, it'd be huge to not miss in your third round pick, to have a guy that could potentially be another option in sub packages and to still play some base end, because Loudermilk's not a pass rusher. Lowry's not going to be a pass rusher. Mon Adams is athletic and has a good burst, but he's not really been an effective pass rusher. So I still really look at only three sub-package guys right now in nickel and dime: Hayward, Ogunjobi, and Benton. You get a fourth in there, you feel a lot better.
And I appreciate him saying that he's confident that this will be the year he makes a jump and all like that. But you know my view on that. Don't tell me about the labor pains. Just show me the baby.
Right.
So it would be huge for this defense, though, if they could get a guy like that to start playing like his draft position.
Yeah, and maybe they acknowledge that he's no longer on scholarship, that his roster spot is in danger, and then the additional competition of Loudermilk and Lowry and Lee can push him. But if this can't push him, then nothing will. So this is it for DeMarvin Leal.
Look, is he a lock to make the roster right now?
No, of course not. I think he's probably outside looking in, and maybe that's sparking the realization that, okay, I got to get to work here.
Right. So we will see how this goes with him. And yeah, it would be huge if they could get him to make the jump here.
More things from OTAs. I know we don't want to overanalyze particular plays and moments as we watched and hear about this Arthur Smith offense getting put together, but there was a clip of Justin Fields running the read option yesterday that I think got some attention on Twitter. We wrote about that for the site as well. I'm trying to think back if Pittsburgh had been doing that even last year in training camp. They may have been doing something similar in some of this was not a 11 on 11. This was just individual skeleton type stuff. No defense out there at all. But obviously when you see Justin Fields running the read option, given his athletic ability, you sit there and wonder, okay, is this going to be a plan for this offense throughout the season?
Well, we talked about, and who was it? RG3 had a quick little video clip about having some sort of package in place for Fields this year. And we've talked about that from almost a moment that Fields arrived. There are going to be packages for him. I don't see how you don't do that. It feels irresponsible by not doing that.
Yeah, I don't want to guarantee they will, but I think they will. I certainly think they should. And I imagine at some point they're going to have some sort of opportunity for him to see the field, even in some sort of small package.
Now, does that mean we're going to see 5 read options a game? No, but
sure.
Especially with his speed and his ability to, if he make, the thing that's been real evident about him on the hoof, talking about Justin Fields, is if he makes one guy miss with him on either scrambles or design type runs, he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, him and Lamar are the two most dynamic runners at quarterback in the NFL today, and you have to account for him. And again, you run the read option and show those looks defenses. They have to account for the quarterback in the run game, and you can do that by putting an extra guy in the box. You can do mesh charge. You can scrape. I mean, you can dedicate a guy, but you're going to have to deal with him, and that makes your run game all the more effective by pulling somebody, one defender that's normally responsible for their gap or run fit or to stop the running back. He's now got to focus on the quarterback. So that just helps you with a numbers game offensively.
All right. Look forward to you tracking all that stuff once training camp gets underway.
Do you think they would show that kind of package? Let's assume it's a specific Wildcat package for Fields, which may be a little difficult to look at because it may be just him aligning like normal, but would they tip their hand in camp and show kind of some design stuff for Fields, do you think?
They don't care what people see or think. They've done the pony backfield every training camp. It feels like we're talking about that. How often do we see that? During the season there, I don't think they have any qualms about. Look, if you're going to run it, you need to practice it.
Sure, I agree. Yeah, I guess the question is just how much would they show it if they do plan on doing it? Not even from a giving it away to the public standpoint, but just knowing that it's going to be a small part of your offense overall. How much time will they dedicate to repping it? And will that come in the full tackling session? I mean, you're not going to tackle the quarterback, so I wonder how they're going to plan just in terms of the number of reps they dedicate to using it. Should that be their intent?
Sure, because there's the time component related to the CBA and a practice,
Right.
and you want to accomplish certain things during these practices, and you might get rained out 2 of them, and those kind of things there. So, I mean, I don't know how to answer the question as to how much, but
sure, I'm just talking out loud at this point.
Right.
Do you think they will use some of the design quarterback runs with Russell Wilson? Because you can run read option with him. They did a little bit last year, I think, even in Denver. There's enough mobility where it's a bit more the element of surprise, more of a 3rd and 1 and it's a read. So just based off of what Wilson sees, it's not, you're not calling Wilson to carry the ball on a particular play. It's just depending on what the end man does. If he crashes on the back, then Wilson's going to keep and take it himself. I think we'll see that a time or two at least.
Yeah. Will you see it? I think so. Will you make a habit out of it? No.
Okay, that's a good way to frame it. Yeah, I mean, the design quarterback run game under Arthur Smith does exist, with Mariota. That's been used, and I imagine you're going to see some elements of that this year with Wilson and Fields.
Russell's going to get himself hit enough as it is.
Fair.
Just by the way he holds on to the football and scrambles and all like that. I don't think you want to design too many additional situations like that for a guy his age.
Sure, obviously you're not going to run the quarterback power type stuff, the G lead type stuff that you might with Fields, but read options, I think you could, and we'll see that with Wilson a time or two. And typically, if Wilson's going to keep the ball in the read option, then that's because the end man's crashed down, the defense is committed to the back, and there's free grass in front, and then you go down and slide once you pick up the first down or get whatever yardage you get. So yeah, obviously when I talk about design run game with Wilson, it's really going to be just the read option. With Fields, you may get more creative with the looks.
Right.
What else from OTAs, Dave? Anything else in terms of what you're hearing, what players are saying that are sticking out to you?
I thought Patrick Queen, some of the comments that he made talking about the communication and how that's going, and really impressed with Peyton Wilson and the way he's picking things up. And what did he say? I forget what term he used, a football player or football guy, and along those lines. So not surprising there, but it feels like he's fitting in real well. And look, he's going to be calling that defense, right? So communication, obviously, huge, something we seem to talk about every year. And it'll be interesting to see how many different packages will they have, and the more personnel groupings that you have, the more you got to worry about communication between those different players and all like that. So just good to hear him talk about the process of integrating himself in that defense right now, and his early thoughts on Wilson and along those lines.
Yeah, he says communication is good, and that's encouraging to hear. Now it's May, and I imagine 31 other teams are talking about how well things are going and how well everyone's communicating and being on the same page. But for Queen in particular, he's going to be that true hub of communication. And I know in Baltimore, I don't know if he talked about it or if the coaches discussed it or was a media interpretation thing, but he was more successful once Roquan Smith came and wore and assumed the green dot, and then Queen could just kind of play freer. And that's an issue. I know guys in Pittsburgh have talked about that before. When you have that communication element, it changes your kind of pre-snap process because you're so focused on the whole unit, you don't even think about kind of yourself and your own reads and keys and kind of what you're thinking about. So that'll be something to watch for with Queen, is dealing and handling the responsibility of the green dot in addition to actually playing like he's capable of playing.
Right. Can he play? The question is, can he play as fast by having those extra duties on top of him? Can he pat his head and rub his tummy at the same time? Yeah,
I'm learning piano, and that is like the hardest part, is trying to get your left hand and your right hand to do, different things. That is literally the hardest part. And so that's going to be the, I assume his job will be tougher than my job playing Ode to Joy over here with both hands, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm proud of you learning that. That's good.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not going tremendously well, but we're making small progress overall. Anyone who has tips, let me know. Calvin Austin, speaking about the offense, and I thought he had some interesting commentary. I'm going to pull up the exact quote here. He was talking about the changes in the offense from, obviously going through Matt Canada's system the last couple seasons to now what Arthur Smith is implementing. And he just talked about a couple of the differences and changes there, about how Smith will have defenses guessing. The exact quote here: from Austin on the changes are, quote, I'd say more personnel groupings, more traditional, but definitely want to get in and out of different personnel using all the weapons and everything. And I think it's one that will continue to have the defense guessing. So saying basically more personnel groupings under Arthur Smith and Matt Canada.
Here. I'm all for it. Sign me up.
I wonder exactly what that, I'm trying to, because I mean, yeah, in Pittsburgh, it was a lot of, obviously 11 personnel was your base. There was some 12 personnel, and that was essentially the bulk of it, right? 11 and 12 personnel. I mean, there were, obviously others. We can go back and look at Tom Meats charting, but under Smith, I mean, you're going to probably see 13 personnel.
23.
Yeah. Although there's still no true fullback. I want to see exactly how that kind of gets looked. Will it be Hayward? Will it be Coletto, Pruitt, something else? But yeah, I think you're going to, and probably more of a mixture and balance where you won't be as 11 personnel heavy as you have been for basically the last decade plus in Pittsburgh.
Look, if done right, if you have, the line and obviously all the personnel that can execute it properly, putting 2 running backs back there at time, you could have some fun with that.
Yeah, I know it's the yearly discussion that you mentioned earlier of the pony backfield, but when 2 of your best skill guys are your running backs, and when you're looking pretty thin at wide receiver, I think there's an opportunity to kind of play around with those 2 guys. Maybe you split a Jaylen Warren out and put Najee Harris in the backfield more often because they're both capable pass catchers. So, again, I'm sure we'll see it in the summer because we always do, and how much it carries over into the fall, I don't know. But if there is a year to actually run pony, it is 2024.
Right, and really, you can't limit that to just Najee or Jaylen Warren either, because Cordell Patterson, boy, and look, it's not going to happen 100 times, but if Cordell Patterson's one of those guys back there, I mean, that guy's played enough wide receiver. I am a huge fan of having check twos based on what defenses roll out against your certain personnel packages. If they go big, then treat them, try to exploit them as if they don't play into what they're thinking that you're going to do. If a defense goes big and thinks you're going to run, can you check off of that and split somebody out wide? And you could do that with a guy. You could do it with Najee too. Najee's has the ability to split out if need be. Obviously, Cordell Patterson has the ability to do that. So I'm all for playing the chess games like that. If you've got the personnel to do it. Once again, I don't think it's going to happen 100 times, but some more than what we've seen so far would be nice.
Sure. You're strong and deep and versatile at running back. So utilize that, lean upon that. And I imagine Smith will, because he's done that. I mean, in Tennessee, it was a little different because you just had one true workhorse back in Derrick Henry. But in Atlanta, you saw, I don't know how much pony, we'll have to look into how much pony, if any, they had run last year with Algier and Robinson and Patterson there as well to kind of get a better gauge for it. But I mean, this offense to me has really come together to look pretty similar in terms of how Atlanta was structured. A bunch of tight ends, talented running backs, beef up the offensive line, thin at wide receiver, your one big outside kind of guy, London in Atlanta, Pickens in Pittsburgh. To me, this offense is pretty much mirroring how Atlanta was built.
Sure. I mean, it goes back to what we talked about at the top of the show and really the comment. This offense, I think, has the ability on paper to raise a few eyebrows if they get one more wide receiver in there.
Sure. Now, I know it sounds a little scary to sit there and say they're building the Atlanta offense because the Atlanta offenses have not been very productive. The difference will come down to quarterback play. Obviously, quarterback play last year was really miserable. They were rotating between Ritter and Heineke, and it was a mess. If you can get better quarterback play from, let's assume Wilson is the starter, that's where you elevate and become a much more effective offense overall. So that's going to, I mean, again, it's obvious, but it all comes down to quarterback play.
I mean, let's face it. You want to see that Tannehill year in Tennessee. If you can get to that level of explosive plays, successful run rates, and all like that from what was it, Tannehill's first season, I think, in Tennessee.
Right.
If you can get the quarterback play and the metrics to where that was that year, man, you can. I mean, it should be enough.
I'm going to ask you a difficult question here with some projection involved, and it's going to be a pretty broad one. But Matt Ryan's 1 year with Arthur Smith in 2021, he completed 67% of his passes, threw for just under 4,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 12 picks. If I could wave a magic wand and give Russell Wilson that stat line, would you sign up for that, or would you roll the dice and whatever happens in 2024?
Tell me the year again.
2021, the 1 year, the first year with Arthur Smith, with Matt Ryan, before he ended up getting traded to Indy after they pursued Deshaun Watson, and then Ryan didn't like that, and he wanted out. The numbers, now they went 7-10 that year. I don't know all the details about. I don't know if the run game was as strong or defense or whatever, but the stat line on that in all 17 games, 4,000 yards, essentially just under that, 67% completion rate, 20 touchdowns, and 12 picks. That was his year.
Okay, I'm going to cheat here.
Okay.
I just pulled up PFR. His adjusted net yards per passing attempt number that season was 5.92. I would like to pass, please.
Okay, you'll pass on that. Yeah, I think I'd roll the dice. The interception's a little high, the touchdown's a little low, and yeah, that adjusted net yards per passing attempt is low as well. But just kind of gauging it.
Right. I understand how you're formatting this just from those stats perspective, but I think you need more there. The running game, obviously, they're going to have to lean on that. What was the run success rate that year? You're not going to make a surge any more than what this team was able to do last season. If you told me right now that Russell Wilson started and played every game for the Steelers in 2024, yet his adjusted net yards per passing attempt number was 5.92. I will not buy that right now.
Yeah, I get that. I probably wouldn't either, but just to play devil's advocate, last year, their completion percentage as a quarterback room was 64%. They only threw for 3,400 yards, 13 touchdowns, 9 picks, and their adjusted net yards per passing attempt was lower at 5.8. So it would be an improvement. You get 7 more touchdown passes. That's 1 per game. If your run game works well and your defense plays well and you expect both those things to occur, 1 more touchdown per game is a huge difference between winning and losing.
How many explosive plays? Sort that out real quick. How many explosive plays did the Falcons offense have in 2021?
I'll need a couple minutes to put that together. I mean, I imagine that their offense, I'm sure, was not great that year. What did they rank in scoring offense? They were 26th. And so I'm not trying to copy their entire offense, obviously, just looking at Ryan's box score in a vacuum there. But I can look it up. But I'm guessing there probably weren't a ton of explosive plays.
Look, I mean, you can, he could have. Here's the thing here, though, too. He was sacked. I mean, he wasn't sacked a ton that season, was he? 40. I mean, if you give me those 40 sacks for Russell Wilson, I'd take those.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Because sacks do play into adjusted net yards per pass. Yeah, I would just imagine. Not diving deeper into this, that there was not enough passing explosive plays for this offense in 2021.
Sure, I'm pulling it up now. I'm just looking at all gains of 20 plus yards, pass or run in terms of passing. Looks like 44. I don't know where that's stacked up for the entire league, but 44 from Ryan that year, and I'm not entirely sure how many rushing there were. Looks like 2 of 20 plus on the ground. I'm going to look up to see where they rank league wide in passing explosive plays. Okay, let me do that right now. If I can think about how do I want to frame that.
Yeah, but look, explosive. Obviously, what this 2024 Steelers team needs to be is better in the red zone. And Russell Wilson, to his credit, last season with the Broncos, what 75, 80% of his touchdown passes were inside the red zone. You're going to have that element of him. Obviously, you should have the rushing, the ability to run the football within the red zone and down low as well too. That area should improve. It's the area between the 20s where this team obviously needs to get a lot better. And in the explosive play element of it, that's something that ball control, time of possession, Russell's got to trim down those sacks, those element of it. But we got to see the explosive plays go up. And, the biggest gain that this team can make, obviously, is the passing game inside the red zone and explosive plays between the 20s.
I feel like I'm so rusty with using StatHead right now. I'm clicking all the wrong buttons, so I still am not getting you the information that you want here, because it always resets the year every time I have to input something.
Let's see, gameplay. Let Daddy handle this.
Okay.
Now, what are you trying to find here?
I finally have it now. Explosive pass plays in 2021. That Atlanta had 44 in that rank. Eyeballing it bottom third. Probably bottom 10 or so. So yeah, Pittsburgh only got 40 that year by comparison. But yeah, short. The takeaway is you want more than the 44.
My granddaddy used to say, "Damn it, Davey, get out of the way. Let me
show you how how it's done over there." Yeah. StatHead gets weird because every time you have to re-input a filter, it resets the year.
Resets.
So, yeah,
and it just started doing that too, didn't it?
StatHead's gotten worse. I don't know about you. They've taken away some features. It's unfortunate because we love our StatHead, and that's where we get so many of the stats and research that we do, and it's becoming more and more challenging. But those are champagne problems, I know.
All right, back to the original question. No, I would not take it based on extrapolating out the rest of the advanced metrics there. They need to be better than a 5.99 adjusted net yards per passing attempt. That number at worst needs to be, especially with a guy like Russell Wilson, needs to be 6.3. And that's low end.
So I'm assuming you wouldn't copy and paste the Wilson stat line last year in 15 games of 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 8 picks, but his adjusted net yards per passing attempt was only 6.04.
Yeah, that's not good enough.
Okay. You want 6.3 as the metric.
Yeah, and look, I mean, here's at least the good thing with him. He's done it before. Sure. I mean, you go back to the last season with the Seahawks in 2021 with him, he posted a 7.11 adjusted net yards per passing attempt number. His career best, 7 point. Obviously, it's been years ago. I'm not looking for this out of him, but 7.73 in 2015. I mean, he's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8. He's had 9 seasons where he's bested 6.5. Now, look, you're going to need good defense play, good running game to help support that. If you're not over 7, if you want to win some ball games here. But I mean, history has shown if you can at least get to that 6.5 number, if you got a relatively decent defense, you're going to win some ball games. You can make some noise with that.
Sure. The concern is he hasn't done it since 2021, his final year in Seattle. He was at 5.5 his first year in Denver, which was a total disaster under Nathaniel Hackett, and then 6.04 last year under Sean Payton. Is the last Steelers quarterback to post that type of figure over a season Ben in 2018? Is that accurate? I
would imagine. I don't see how it wouldn't be, right?
Right, because Ben, his last couple of years was under 6. In 2018, he was at 7.1. So it's been a second since Pittsburgh has last achieved that, what we would view as a pretty basic and minimum type of feat.
And look, you go back to what Russell did the last couple, see a lot of those shorter passes and all like that. I mean, that's fine and dandy and all, but you better have the yak. And that's one thing the Steelers haven't had the last couple of seasons, as the Ben Roethlisberger average yards per completion, the completed air yards distance slowly shrunk, dipped on him, where they were not making it up with that was the yards after the catch. So if they are going to play this short, crisp, passing game, you're going to have the yak be there for you. And who do you have that can do that other than George Pickens right now, at least from what we know?
It's a good question. I was going to ask you the same thing, basically. Who are the best yak guys on this team right now? And I'm kind of struggling.
We talked about Roman did okay, in college and all like that.
Did he do okay with yak? I thought his yak was pretty poor.
I mean, it was okay. It was 4 point something, I think, the last season. So, for college, is that good? I mean, for pros, it's fantastic.
Sure.
I mean,
he won't do that.
Right. You give me a guy that does that at a professional level. Yeah. Sign me up for it,
Yeah. Now Pickens dramatically turned around his yak because he was one of the worst yak guys his rookie year and then was one of the best last year. And I think that's for a variety of reasons: more comfort, more versatility, more expanded route tree, some of those slants he took to the house against the Bengals and the Browns, I think it was. So he's not a maybe traditional yak guy in terms of making guys miss, but obviously he's explosive and has some long speed. But your tight ends, Freiermuth with some power. Can you get Washington involved a bit more? Connor Hayward. But yeah, you're not really seeing some of those true blue yak guys.
I mean, look, we both agree that Calvin Austin should be able to top his numbers from last year, right?
I mean,
the bar's low.
If he's playing, then I would hope so. But I just don't. I mean, it's all jumbled up. He's in that same boat with Jefferson and Miller and Quez Watkins to fight for a spot in a role. And has he shown to be a yak guy? I haven't seen that. In college, sure he was. At the NFL, obviously, it's only 1 year. He's been a deep threat in terms of the speed on that one touchdown catch, but I've not really seen any signs of yak from him.
Yeah, but I mean, how are you going to see that from him when the sample size? He has 17 catches, man.
Well, yeah. What's the issue? Is the issue that they're just not getting him the ball enough, or is the issue that he's not showing enough to get the ball? It's a chicken or egg discussion to be had.
Right. I mean, he had 30 targets last season, 17 reception, 100. I mean, he's good. You want to talk about third-year guys? They got a lot to prove. I mean, he's the DeMarvin Leal on the offensive side of football.
Absolutely. I mean, he's got to have a big year, got to have a big camp because there's a lot of competition. And again, I think you take that group of 4 and probably 2 of them make it of that 4 that I just rattled off, right, in terms of who makes the 53, and it's anybody's game.
I just go back to the way kind of we talked earlier. You want to make us all feel better. Infuse some cash and some catch into that room.
There you go. Put that on a bumper sticker. So who'd be the best of the 3 most likely options? I guess you can term it: Sutton, Jennings, and Slayton. Who's the best yak guy of those 3?
Oh boy. I mean, I don't have the metrics in front of me, but I would think it would be Sutton, right?
Probably in terms of overall number. I mean, I think Jennings, he's a bigger body type. He's that big slot that can, I think do damage in terms of his size and breaking tackles, running through arm tackles. Slayton is that more classic speedster that is probably not going to be a huge yak guy, but can win vertically and get you the air yards. And then Sutton's probably somewhere a little more in between.
I think when looking at all 3, give me either one of Sutton or Jennings. Obviously at this point, Slayton looks like a Ritz cracker too. Just getting somebody additional with experience in that room. I think the most attractive thing about Sutton is he's already played with Wilson, and at least from a scoring aspect, he was there last year. I think if you look at him in totality from a yards and catch perspective, it's down there from last season. That's going to hurt his cause with getting him paid this offseason here with him. But at least you have the familiarity, and he sounds like he's a good kid overall. I think he would mesh in well. He's got the link back to Zani, right?
Yeah, Azani coached him in Denver.
So there's some attractiveness there. I think he would add enough. I think he would add enough to that room for it to be an eyebrow raiser then,
Sure. Rank in terms of what you guess. I looked up the yak per reception from last year, so I know it's a 1-year sample size. But rank where do you think these three guys fall into yak per reception of Jennings, Sutton, and Slayton, from the best yak per reception last year to the worst? 1, 2, 3.
I would venture, thinking about it now and thinking about some of the catches that Sutton had. He probably ended up last on that list, didn't he?
He did. You want to take a guess who was first, Jennings or Slayton?
Was it Slayton?
It was Slayton. Yeah, I was surprised by that. Slayton came in at 6 yards of yak per reception last year. Jennings was at 4.7, and Sutton, I believe, was 2.6.
What was Sutton?
Let me double check here. 2.6. He's everybody yak guy. 2.6 last year, 2.4 in 2022. His best year, 2019. The big year that he had, 4.9 was his best yak per reception year.
Now here's the thing. You remember back to that Broncos passing game last year. There was a lot of short passing game in there.
Sure, but that in theory should lend itself to some yak, because the longer passes is where you lose out on some of the yak.
Yeah, it depends on where you're catching them though, and
sure,
those guys. And here's the other thing: how many touchdowns did Sutton have last? What percentage of Sutton's catches last year were touchdowns, and how many of them were did he not have a chance to have any yak on?
That's a fair point. Although the year before he only had 2 touchdowns, and his yak was also really low. So I don't think he's never really had the track record of being a yak guy, no matter what his touchdowns are. But he did have 10 last year, and that's a valid point. But he only had 2 the year before, and his yak was very similar.
Okay. I mean, we agree any one of those 3 really should be the goal, right?
Yeah. And it doesn't have to, I mean, you want a needle mover in the sense of you want a defined starter, but it doesn't have to be Brandon Ayuk. As great as it would be to get this like elite top tier guy, this offense does not require adding an elite top tier receiver when you have George Pickens, a healthy run game, tight ends you can throw to. Roman Wilson will be involved to some degree. You just need somebody that is a stable, consistent number 2 option to work through your progressions. And again, just God forbid George Pickens gets hurt. You're banking so much on Pickens' health right now. What if this guy goes down with even a short-term injury? Your passing game really gets crunched, and it just I'm afraid to even see what that looks like. So that's my biggest concern of it all right now is what if Pickens goes down?
Right. It's catastrophic. And remember, this is the same, not that there's, not that one knee injury turns into another. He's already gone through this once,
When did Pickens go down? I'm trying to think back.
What in his final season?
You're talking about Georgia when he tore his ACL.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about NFL. Yeah. He tore his ACL going into his last year at Georgia.
Right. Not that one, leads to another, that kind of thing there. But I mean, look, they need some more depth at the position in the story.
Yeah, I mean, somebody had asked me yesterday, who could you live without more, Joey Porter Jr. or George Pickens? And obviously, you want both guys healthy in the lineup and producing. But I said, you can better afford to lose Joey Porter, even though cornerback depth is also pretty thin. I think defensively, you can mask some things better, and Pittsburgh has just been able to handle injuries defensively more, sans TJ Watt than the offense has been able to. I think this offense would struggle to mask and work around and scheme around losing Pickens than a defense would losing Porter.
All right. I don't know how we got to this point, but
that's the working title for the podcast, right? We don't know how we got to this point.
I think the fact of the matter is if you want us to, if we're to start talking about this offense might have something for some people this year, I think they need that one additional wide receiver.
What do you think this offense would rank in its current form, assuming guys stay healthy, they don't add a receiver, it's Pickens and Wilson and who knows what else? Is this an average offense in terms of scoring points per game? That's how I judge the success of an offense.
I think it's right around the middle of the league at best.
It would be an upgrade still, because they've been sitting in the 20s for many years now, but obviously if you can get above that, if you can get, what is your realistic goal in terms of from a points per game standpoint to get this team to top 12?
I'd like to see it within the top 15 for sure.
Yeah, I think average is the minimum, but I think in terms of the goal that you're setting, you would like top 12. But I think, again, minimum top 16 has to be what you get to at the very least.
What was the let me find the rankings here, team rankings, and points per game. Let's see here. Offensively, what was the middle of the league last year? What would you guess would have been the middle of the league in points per game last season for offense?
How the turntables throwing the questions back at me. Scoring was down last year. I looked at those numbers so much, but I was so concentrated on the bottom third where Pittsburgh was at the entire year. I think Pittsburgh was at 18 something points per game, and that was 25th or so. I will guess 20.7.
They didn't even hit 18 in the finality. There was 17.9.
Was it? Man.
For the Steelers last year. God, that's awful.
Yeah.
I mean, anything above that's going to look like oh my God, you tell me we scored 21 points in this game? How did they do that?
I'll say average was 20.9.
It looks like, let me 1, 2, 3,
just under
4,
blackjack.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, about 21.5. The Bengals were 21.5, and it looks like they were slap dab in the middle of the league.
All right, so I was in the ballpark. I had a decent guess overall. So the goal is 21 points. Are you saying 22 points? Is that what you're looking for?
I would like I would take 21. I would take 22 right now if you gave it to me. If you said, I'm going to pencil you in at 22.0 right now, would you take it? I would. Sold.
Yeah, if you could guarantee me that somehow, some way, I would as well, because we've not seen that in Pittsburgh in far too long.
If you told me 21 and I could would you take your chances and decline 21.0? That's what Denver had last year, by the way.
Yeah, Denver was 19th last year, I know, in points per game. I would take 21. Maybe I'm a little conservative in that, but just from where this team has been, if you give me 21 with this defense that should be top 10 in scoring defense, I mean, I know I just said you want to be at least average, and I'm kind of taking right below that. But if I could, again, theoretically lock it in, you can win with that, at least win a playoff game.
Right. I hear you. I see where you come from. Yeah, I'd be tempted to take that too, coming off what we've watched the last couple of years.
Yeah.
There.
Maybe our bar should not be so low. I don't know. Maybe that's on us.
It doesn't seem like 3 points a game is that big of a damn deal, but in the NFL it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the average. And also what you're looking for is just, can you get some games where you're getting 30 points? We were when Pittsburgh was on that horrendous streak of not getting 30 points in the win until Rudolph late last year came in. And so can you have a couple explosive games? And listen, you're going to face some offenses or some opposing offenses where you better score. The Chiefs and the Eagles should have a good offense, and the Bengals are going to be, retooled with Burrow. The Chargers might have, we'll see at receiver, but I'm always thinking Herbert's a guy that can put up points on the board pretty good. So you better be able to score some points this year.
Look, Kansas City won the Super Bowl last year, 21.8.
Yeah, although that's such an outlier, and obviously they turned it on once the playoffs began, and they had Mahomes and Pittsburgh doesn't. The stat I had, I think before the Chiefs, it was something like the last decade, every Super Bowl champ was top 12 in scoring offense or something similar to that. So, the correlation between offenses and Super Bowls is pretty obvious.
With all these advanced metrics that keep coming out, and man, they're fantastic. I eat them up, but you can't. There's a couple of things that you just can't get away from. I think when you talk about Super Bowl kind of contending teams, one of them is the adjusted net yards per passing attempt number, and the other one was that stat that you did. What was it? Takeaways.
Mm-hmm. 20 plus takeaways or something like that.
Right. For defenses and all like that. I mean, if you're not in a couple of those categories there, it doesn't matter.
Sure. And then just to put it as simply as possible, we're going to sound like Matt Canada or the Rowdy Tellez factor. Points. You got to get the job done. You got to put points on the board. That's the bottom line.
Right. Can Rowdy play tackle? Because he can't play.
He can't play first. I don't know why he's still on this roster right now, but that's a separate podcast.
All right, I don't know how we got to where we are right now in this thing. Does seem to be a working title of this podcast here. Get us back to somewhere else.
Yeah, let's talk about Joey Porter Jr. adding some weight. He says he's up to 205, wants to get bigger and stronger, be more physical off the line and as a tackler. And so I think he came out of college, Penn State 193 listed. I think he said he played about 198, 200 last year, and weights fluctuate, especially in season. It's going to change, lose 6 pounds in a game just because of how intense it is. But Porter a little bigger in year 2.
I'm here for it. Anything that'll help with that tackling with him.
Yeah, he got better as a tackler. I thought he really improved over the course of the season. He was pretty bad to start the year. And I think that what last year he had said is his dad was chirping at him for being a bad tackler and sullying the good Porter name as tacklers. And so he improved there. If he could be an average tackler and be the coverage guy he can be, you got a top 10 type of corner. Look,
for what he was able to show as his rookie year progressed and all like that, if he takes, whatever that next step looks like, he has a chance to turn into one of the better corners in the league. Not top corner, but a guy that you're talking about. Where do I rank him in top 10 to top 15?
Yeah, I mean, if he gets a couple picks, then he's going to be viewed nationally as one of the better corners in football. That's going to be his issue. Just not that we're going to care about it too much, but from a Pro Bowl, All-Pro standpoint, you typically need some interceptions or truly to be an awesome number 1, number 2 lockdown man coverage corner. I don't know if Porter's going to get quite to that point, but I think the ceiling is very high for him. But you do want to see some more interceptions. It's never really been his game. 1 career pick at Penn State, 1 interception last year, which came in week 5 against Baltimore. Because as you mentioned, the takeaway aspect is so huge in deciding which teams are the best in football.
Look, he took him a while to start getting some playing time last year. But once it did, you couldn't take him off the field. He'll be able to obviously hit the ground running this year right out of the chute. So we should see it.
I think the one thing he'll have to really work on too, I'm going to probably do my One Step to Take series sometime here beginning pretty soon. That
always ends up pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's just a good way to kind of look at, what one singular thing can a young guy work on for a second year. But Porter will all just have to, and you kind of alluded to it, play a 17-game season because he didn't do that last year. He was playing in dime packages the first month, and then week 5 in the second half, he was getting finally some expanded work and did not actually earn his first career official start until week 8 against Jacksonville. So, I think that's another reason why it's good he's going to bulk up some, get a little bigger and stronger because he's going to have to, play a full season, and he's not gone through that before. And the mental kind of toughness required to be that number 1 corner for an entire year, I think he's certainly capable of doing it. I don't question his mental toughness one bit, but just that and physically getting through a full calendar year will be new for him.
Sure. I think it's, once again, his head's not spinning anymore. He's been there. He's done it now. Hitting, coming out of shoot starter. Look, he was following guys around last season, all of this. He might have an outside shot to be a Pro Bowler, if he has some takeaways.
Yeah, a couple of picks will do that, but he's going to have some 5-star matchups. You're facing Jamar Chase twice a year. You're facing who else? A.J. Brown, big guy. You're facing Terry McLaurin in all likelihood when they play Washington. You're going to face some top tier receivers throughout the year. So Porter has to be at his best.
All right. How about one more OTA overreaction for you here?
Sure. Hit me if you got one.
Brian Batko, week 1 of OTAs is in the books for the Steelers. Outside linebacker Jeremiah Moon is such a physical specimen, even among this group of edge rushers. He came aboard via waiver claim from the Ravens this offseason. React to me.
I mean, I'm not surprised by that. We knew, just from a listing standpoint, when he came out of Florida, he was a big guy. I'm pulling up his exact height and weight right now, but he was 6'5", 250, essentially, just old school size linebacker. You don't see too many like that, especially when you probably see Moon standing next to Herbig, for example. There's a clear size disparity there, 35-inch arms. So from just a lump of clay standpoint, really intriguing tools. The question is, though, can you develop him? To me, he was really underdeveloped as a pass rusher in terms of technique and hand use and finding a go-to move. As a run defender, there's some stoutness there because of that frame and the natural strength that comes along with it. So to me, quality special teams guy, can play the run. He's got work to do as a pass rusher, but yeah, I mean, you just look at the guy physically, the first off the bus approach, I mean, he's killing it.
Before I add on to that, you know where that react to me comes from, don't you?
I don't think I do. I'm gonna assume they didn't come from you.
No, Jim Rome. Jim Rome used to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he used to. I guess he still does. I haven't really listened to him actively for years, but he used to have a hot take, and then he'd scream into the mic, "React to me."
Was that on the show on ESPN? Would he do that on the Jim Rome? Rome is burning, whatever they called it.
I mean, I think it was just the Jim Rome show back then, wasn't it?
Initially, yeah.
And I think didn't he get a start in San Diego? I think he was out West Coast and all like that. But anyway, that's always kind of stuck with me. Jeremiah Moon. Look, I don't know how this is going to go for him. Obviously, I will say this. I think we said this right out of shoot with him. That was a shrewd move by the Steelers late last season to. That's a move that you see the Patriots sometimes make. Get a guy that you think another team's going to try to slide through waivers to get back on their practice squad. It's got some talent and ability. Nobody's going to notice. Yeah, he's not a superstar, all like that. But that was a shrewd move, and the Steelers actually did that after their season ended, and the Ravens were still going at that point. You know,
they had to wait until after the Super Bowl for that to officially process.
Right, and then on top of it, he was exclusive rights free agent. So you stole the player with upside, basically, on the cheap. Now, if he can become that fourth guy, give you a handful of snaps a game on defense as a pass rusher, play on special teams, something he should be able to do. We could look back and say, boy, what a move that was. And once again, I want to pump the brakes a little bit on him because he's got to show it, sure. But, the early, you can't overreact, first week of OTAs, but it's positive none the least. This guy we talked about the moment that transaction happened, and hopefully he keeps making some noise because that would be huge if they get the number 4 outside linebacker on this team that way.
Right. And that's why I was okay with this team passing or not getting a deal done with Bud Dupree. I'm comfortable with the outside linebacker depth as it's currently constructed. Now, again, Batko's comment is about Moon, how he looks, and there's no question about that. He looks impressive. The question is on the tape, does it still look as impressive? And he's a young guy, but there's going to be some work to do. I think he got hurt too at Florida and missed some time and battled some injuries, and that may have pushed him down as well. But if he can develop, and he's got good coaching with Dunbar, Denzel Martin, obviously in that room when you have Watt and Highsmith learning from those guys, there's upside, as you said.
All right. Anything else?
Did I have one more thing to talk about from OTAs? No, I think that was basically it. I know you've spent some time talking about Cam Hayward, his contract situation, touched on it a little bit earlier in the show. Kind of give us the other side of the coin. You talked about a high side on Monday to wrap up this week. Talk about, could a possible extension look like and mirror basically how Troy Polamalu and Heath Miller did their last extensions back in 2014.
Yeah, look, I don't think anybody should be surprised if it ends up going that route with him. You and I talked about it a little bit more in depth on that last show. You asked me about what Troy Polamalu's new money average was before and after his 2-year extension in 2014. He went into it with a $9.8666666666 million new money average, and then the result of that 2-year extension that he signed brought it down to 5. I believe I had that number right on the money. Maybe I said 5.7. I don't remember. 5.875 million was a result of that. So no new money in 2014, no guaranteed money in 2015 and 2016. It ended up basically being a glorified restructure. Took one for the team, if you will. He was nearing his 33rd birthday at that time there, but still people thought, try to think back. Was the thought at that time that he'd play at least a couple more years?
I don't have a good recollection, but I'm assuming it probably the expectation was not for him to not play beyond 2014.
Okay. Well, he obviously didn't,
Right.
So really he didn't get anything out of that other than the $8.25 million he was already scheduled to earn for 2014. They were able to drop his salary cap charge by $4.5 million that March. If you look at the case with Heath Miller, they basically did the same thing with him. He was scheduled to earn $6.02 million in 2014. They turned a chunk of that into a signing bonus. He went into that 2014 offseason with a new money average of $6.75 million. Boy, that sounds so cheap now, doesn't it?
Times have changed.
You look back at this.
That's Najee's option amount they declined, basically.
Right. $6.75 million was his new money average coming out of that previous deal of his. He signed a 2-year, $8 million. No new. The only new money was the 2-year, $8 million. None of that was guaranteed. No additional money in the 2014 year. And he came out of that with his new money average dropping from that $6.75 million down to $4 million. Now, he obviously played not only in 2014 but 2015 as well. And a lot of people probably don't remember, but in 2015 they were still cap crunched. They restructured his contract again in 2015 to free up a little bit of salary cap space on him in 2015. Didn't change the terms of the deal or new money or anything like that. But when we talk about could we see it goes back to what we said the other day. Would Cam Hayward be interested in a 2-year extension with no additional new money in 2024? What would satisfy him as far as a new money average of the 2 additional years on top of it? And would it be something that it would be smart for the Steelers to go that route with it. And I would imagine the Steelers are pushing hard to go that route with it. You don't do that just thinking, look, we'll tack on. You don't go into it from the Steelers standpoint of saying, we're going to give you 2 more years. It's not going to be a new money in 2024 situation. And we're going to do it knowing that we have to cut you next offseason. You don't go into it with that mentality.
Sure.
But you have to accept the possibility of the player not being worth whatever the base salary or the cash payment is in 2025.
Right, which is why I talk about on paper the no new money extension you referenced seems to be just, okay, why isn't it done yet? There's still a question about what your base salary is supposed to be in future years. And that's, I don't want to just gloss over that, because that becomes relevant when teams make decisions on, are you worth the money?
And look, they lowered the base salaries. Polamalu's was, what was it, like $6 million in 2015 on paper, and I forget what Heath was, but obviously those base salaries were lower because they resulted in the new money average and lowering on both those guys as well too. So
you said Troy's, I think, was pretty lower, like pretty clearly lower, a couple million. I think on Wednesday show.
Yeah, I mean his new money, like I just said, his new money average went from 9.867, let's say, down to $5.875 million. So he wasn't a prideful man. Look, how much do those guys really look at the list later on in their career is the question.
How much do those guys look at the list in terms of where they're stacking up?
Yeah, their new money average. I mean, right now, Cameron Hayward's 20th on the list.
Yeah, well, their agent does, that's for sure. Their agent cares about that kind of stuff.
Sure, because that's how it's going to be presented. They'll try to, if they do a no new money in 2024 extension with Cam Hayward, and if the average new money in 2025 and 2026 comes in lower than 16.4 million average, it'll be presented in a way that it'll be, what do we say? They'll call it a 3-year. What's 16 on top of, let's say, 30,
46.
Yeah. that's the way it will be presented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the most favorable terms possible, because most of those reports are agent reported. When you hear Rappaport or Schefter tweet about a contract, I don't know that for a fact, but I'm very much assuming and confident that agents are disclosing those details.
And you won't hear any talk about what Cam Hayward's new money average is,
Right. Or in terms
or
of
the guaranteed money,
or the signing bonus isn't really new money, but it's going to sound like new money and people are going to freak about it.
Right. They'll say, and here's the other thing. It depends. Look, if you do that, no new money in 2024, layout here that we talked about there. The only question is how much of the 16 million do you turn into a signing bonus? You can turn at max all but 1.21 million of that into a signing bonus. Will the Steelers go that far with it? They might not have to. You could turn all but 4 million of it into it can do whatever you want. Yeah. Well, you can do whatever you want. I'm just trying to talk about realistic here. You could turn all but 4 million of that 16 million into a signing bonus, which 16 minus 4, take your shoes off. That's carry to 1. That's 12 million. So that would be the signing bonus reported, even though it's already money you're giving him money he's already due. You're just giving it to him in a different mechanism there. And even going that route of all but 4 million of his 2024 money in a signing bonus, and if it's a 2-year extension, you still lower his cap hit by 8 million.
Right. And the reason why you might not take the whole base salary down is you would reduce the amount of potential dead money on the other side if you were to cut Hayward a year or two into that extension.
Correct. So what you're doing there is if you're turning 12 million into a signing bonus, then that gets prorated 4 million out over the 3 years of the deal. So you have the potential of $8 million in dead money combined of 2025 and 2026.
Yeah, so I think that has to be decided, and I still think the base salary is a sticking point or potential obstacle in an extension of, even if it's non-guaranteed, which it won't be. You still have to figure out what his base salary is. Now, are you going to have the guy that's going to be 36, 37, making 16 million in terms of his base salary? I don't think Hayward would want to take less. I don't think even 16 is unreasonable. It sounds like a large number, and it is, but he's, in terms of where that is in relation to the market, top 20 defensive tackle right now, he's going to fall down that chart year over year as other guys get paid. As the cap goes up, it's a smaller percentage of the cap. So I wouldn't have an issue with that, but you still have to decide, is it going to be 16 million? Will it be less? Will it be more? There's still going to be some discussions there.
Look, could this end up being 24? Could he come out of this with a new money average, a technical? Look, you're getting into semantics here, but these figures matter. Okay, they matter. New money averages matter. Cash expenditures in a certain season matter. Could you? And if you look at kind of the percentages that both Polamalu and Heath Miller dropped their new money averages, could you get in a situation where Cam Hayward's base salary in 2025 is 13 million and his base salary in 2026 is 12 million, another 25 million over the next 2 years, which would make his technical new money average 12.5 million?
That seems like a tough sell, because Troy wasn't prideful. Cam Hayward's a prideful man.
I'm not saying look, people going to get, if he listens to this, he talked about how he's going to screenshot all this stuff. Man, I just a week ago I was talking about what the high side would be and made a ton of people angry by doing that, and now I get the low side of it. People are going to say, "Are you out of your mind?" But that's what I'm trying to say. That this thing could go in a lot of different directions. Look, it's still probably not totally out of the realm that you give this guy, another $1 million or $2 million this season as a trade-off for lowering his future salaries and no guaranteed money past 2024. Yeah. I don't think do I think it's going to go that route when the dust clears? I would bet against it, but I don't think it's unthinkable to as a trade-off, especially if you are convinced he can play at least one more year past this season. All right. Could you in turn give him let's say $18 million this season as a trade-off of giving him base salaries in 2025 and 2026 of, let's say, $12.5 million respectively?
You could try. If I had to guess, I'm not speaking for Hayward here. Obviously, I think anything that is viewed as a pay cut in that sense, he's not going to go for, but it's an option. Sure.
And look, I'll roll this back to what I said for people that are mad, happy, whatever with me. My thought going into this offseason with Cam Hayward was what? A no new money extension, no new money in 2024 extension. Basically following suit with Heath Miller and Troy Polamalu, and it can be yet to be determined what the new money average is. But both those guys did lower their new money averages as a result. And at 35 years old, I mean, Troy did it, and he was 33 at the time. Cam is 35. So it's not unthinkable for him to come out of it with either a equal new money average of $16.4 million or a tad lower.
But you have to wonder, would Pittsburgh have done those deals had they not been so hard up against the cap? That's why they did those deals.
Right. But why you could have still done those deals and left their new money averages alone.
Yeah. But my point is to say the other option, the other layer to peel back of this on it is do nothing and just let the season ride out, which I'm not going to say, which I think is a possibility. I don't know if it's the most likely scenario, but it is a possibility.
All right, here's the thing. Here's the big picture look here. And once again, you think you know, but you don't know.
Right.
If you did do something, an extension with Cam Hayward, and the byproduct of that was decreasing his cap number by $8 million. Okay. Mm-hmm. In other words, take 12 of his $16 million, turn it into a signing bonus. Add on the 2 years to whatever they are, but you drop his 2024 cap number by $8 million. By doing that, and depending on what the rest of the plan is, it could prevent you from having to restructure the contract of Minkah Fitzpatrick. If you don't do anything with Cam Hayward's contract this offseason and you leave the cap number as is, it's a good bet you're going to have to at least go to the bank of Minkah.
Sure. But I guess the question is, would you rather restructure Minkah, who's younger, or Hayward, who's older? I think they would say Minkah.
Sure. That's the trade-off there.
Yeah. And I still would, even to add another layer, would you do a roster bonus or some sort of compromise to give him some non-actually fully guaranteed money, but money that would basically cement his roster spot by March 2025? I think that's a possibility as well, as some sort of, because there's got to be a bridge here. I think, if Hayward doesn't.
It's a calendar trigger. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's important. There's some surety. There's more surety in that than a just straight 2-year extension with no guaranteed money, no roster bonus, no nothing.
Sure. At least it doesn't leave him hanging on March 15th or whatever.
Right. So a lot of ways this thing could go. We'll continue to see how it plays out. I imagine there won't be a resolution for at least a little while.
Look, this thing could get done an hour after we're off the podcast, or we could be sitting here 2 weeks out from the season.
When do you think it would, if it were to get done? I think we talked about this Wednesday, but I don't think it's going to get done anytime super immediately. I think probably before camp. I think it'll get done
before camp. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think Omar wants this hanging around. I don't think Cam wants it hanging around. They'll get it done, I think.
Yeah. If not, though, it will get interesting to see how Hayward approaches things. If Pittsburgh draws a line in the sand and says, we're not doing a deal at all, or we won't do the deal under the terms that you want us to do a deal.
Look, if he has a camp hold-in, would anybody notice?
It'd be a story at that point, though.
It'd be a story,
and rightfully so.
Right, but it's not like he's going to be doing much anyway.
I mean, he practices quite a bit. Now, they gave him days off last year because that's when he tore his groin. But I mean, he gets the birth certificate day, but he practices more days than not, and he goes hard out there. And his presence is important. I mean, he sets the tone. So I think if it goes into camp, it actually becomes a story for the team and for him to get himself ready for week 1.
I would like to see him practice less, though.
Yeah, I want to see him play a little less too. As much as I love seeing him play out there, just they put so much on this guy. And again, he certainly has gotten his rest days in years past. But if he's not out there for camp, if he's holding in, then it's notable.
All right, would you like to get to some non-nasty emails today? I'm starting to get hungry. Today's spaghetti day.
Ooh, very nice. Yeah, let's get some emails and close out today's show.
All right, Luke Weaver writes in. Luke's got an interesting question here, Alex. He titles it "Flip It and Reverse It." David,
the Missy Elliott.
Is that what that is? To keep people in. Look, we've already gone this long. What the hell's another damn 10 minutes here? I was educating Alex this morning on Fleetwood Mac, the band, and obviously that old concert that they did yesterday was the anniversary. What was it? 27-year anniversary of that concert. How old were you then, Alex?
4. Roughly.
Let me see what exactly that date was. I mean, to me, that still seems so vivid in my mind watching that. I think it was on HBO or something. 27 years ago was that concert. I think it was the Rumors or something like that. But man, what a monumental concert. Anyway, I was telling Alex about that, and Alex really doesn't have a lot of recollection of Fleetwood Mac. So you're gonna have to fill me in on what I'm missing there.
Yeah, I would say Missy Elliott's new age, but it's not. I mean, that's like my upbringing. So that's still 15, 20 years ago. I think my mom had a cassette tape of Fleetwood Mac. That's how old I remember the Fleetwood Mac era type of stuff.
Me and your mom could probably get together and have
okay.
some musical commonality, right?
I'll ask her. She wants to come on the podcast for Monday's show.
How old is your mom?
Oh, I'm not going to. Does my mom want her age out there? I don't know if that's appropriate to do. She's
I could do the math here.
She's in her 60s, born 58.
Okay, so she's okay. All right. Let's see, Dave and Alex. I'm sure you've had enough schedule talk at this point and are ready to move on. But would you humor me with one more question? Would you rather have the Steelers' 2024 schedule as is or flipped back to front? That's an interesting question there. He says, I know we'd rather see the tougher games spaced out. The NFL always backloads the division games, blah, blah, blah. But with our new OC scheme, quarterbacks, O-line, the gauntlet of the Bengals, Chiefs, Ravens, Eagles, Browns, Bengals, Browns, and Ravens right out of the gate. But what would you think our record would be after those 8 games? Over. I don't want to get into what I think the record would be or anything like that, but I mean, I think you could have stopped the question right there. Would you rather have the Steelers 2024 schedule as is or flip back to front? That is an interesting question in of itself.
No, I'd keep it as is. I mean, neither are great answers. Obviously, you'd rather have it broken up a bit more than probably how it's presented, but given the newness for this offense as they try to gel together, and I mean, if you don't have a great start to the season, which Pittsburgh traditionally has not had great starts to the seasons the last couple of years, and you start losing some AFC North games early, then you really start playing catch up in October. That's an especially tough spot to be in. So I'll keep it as is.
I'm with you on that for all the reasons that you gave. I would keep, if given a choice, I would much rather keep it the way it is instead of flipping it on its head. Because I like the chances of what they can do in the first couple of games as is against the opponents. I like the first quarter of the schedule, really, even though
I think it's harder than people think. I think 3 of the first 4 on the road. Atlanta can be a playoff team. Denver might be better. The Chargers going to be better. The Colts are going to be good or competitive. Cowboys, like it's not as hard as the end, but it is not an easy schedule.
Right. And obviously on the road with 3 of them, I get it, but I mean, I don't mind it as opposed to flipping it on its head. No,
yeah, I agree. Again, the back half is tougher, but I think people are, because the end of the schedule is so difficult looking, that people are glossing over the challenges of the first half. And you could sit there and say, by week 17, you have no idea what the NFL is going to look like. Everything could be different. By week 2, you probably have a decent idea of what these teams will be. Injuries may not be as impactful. And so it's easier to project out the strength of a team in week 1 and week 2 as it is in week 14.
Okay, fair enough there. But maybe I do think that it's a little bit easier than you do.
Right? Are you looking at like 3-1 to start? Is that your kind of? I hate these projections.
Yeah.
I'm breaking my own rule here, but is that kind of where you're? I'm thinking like 2-2. I'll take 2-2 to start the year.
I think they need to come out of it 3-1, and I think they can.
I think they can. My kind of expectation mentally is a 2-2 type of start.
And look, this whole damn thing will change.
Sure.
We got a lot of summer to go here as far as our outlook, as far as that goes. But it's a good question nonetheless. Corey Serapian writes in, "Hey, David, I've heard some very encouraging things from Calvin Austin media availability on Thursday when he was asked about Coach Zakazani, to name a few. He don't play that. Him and mediocrity don't really mesh. If you just want to cruise on through, that ain't going to happen." The last quote he has here is, "He's going to get the best out of you." And then Corey goes on to write, "Are we underestimating what he can bring out of guys in that room like Austin and Wilson? And if you had to pick a surprise impact from someone in that room, who would it be?" Okay, first and foremost, Corey, I mean, look, Alex, what were some of the things we wrote about Zakazani right after the hiring?
Yeah, this kind of tougher approach to me is not a surprise. The article that I had written back on, I spent my Valentine's Day on February 14th. New wide receivers coach Zakazani is the butt kicker Pittsburgh needs. And so he's a guy that is going to be, on these guys and loves them and cares about them. It's not mean, but it is high expectations and keeping these guys accountable.
All right. So what Austin said is backing that up, right?
Yeah. It's good to validate that. It's good to hear. And it's, I think more people are getting exposure to Coach Mazzani, but to me, that was no surprise. I'd have been surprised had it gone the other way. Now to the question of who's going to be the surprise name.
That's a good question.
It is. I really, could I sit there and say Scotty Miller? Because he's got some speed and he's got inside-outside versatility. That's a guy that's a bit more of a veteran, a bit more proven, but we're all just kind of guessing.
I think a surprise, maybe not a surprise, and assuming they don't add to the room, Callaway.
Okay, I like Callaway. Yeah, that's a good one too.
So,
they don't add an outside guy.
Roster, right?
Yeah, Marquez Callaway's a guy I'll be watching for in camp very closely.
All right, our buddy Brett Davis, who's done occasional writing for the site, sometimes writes in wide receiver trade target Alec Pierce. He writes, "I've not been around the site as much, but I still listen to the podcast. Want to throw a name out there for a wide receiver trade target that I think is logical, but have not heard discussed. Alec Pierce," he writes, "drafted in 2022 with the pick right after George Pickens. He has served as the Colts starting outside wide receiver 2 in the last 2 seasons, but he has been behind Pittman and their slot wide receiver Campbell now downs in receptions and yards both seasons. The Colts just drafted Mitchell, who figures to take Pierce's role. Pierce could be on the outs with Pittman signed long-term and Downs Mitchell ahead of him on the depth chart. He would be clearly defined outside wide receiver with size. They could add to the room probably for not much trade capital. He has had some success in the NFL and is still on his rookie deal." All right. Talk about Alec Pierce. And look, Brett does his homework. So thoughts there.
I think it's a really good suggestion. He was a height, kind of big guy out of Cincinnati. I'm looking at the numbers here, 16 yards per catch last year, despite, losing Anthony Richardson quarter into the season. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how AD Mitchell develops. There were some questions about kind of his rawness and maturity. I know Chris Ballard went to bat for him, had that kind of rant as he shot back at those rumors before the draft, but I can see that. That actually makes a lot of sense. That's a good suggestion.
He's a pretty physical guy as far from the blocking aspect too, isn't he?
I'd have to check our old scouting report on that. Probably, though, wouldn't surprise me. What did he do last year against Pittsburgh? Do you have any performance against the Steelers last year? Only 1 catch for 13 yards. I just say that because sometimes Pittsburgh will circle those guys that have had success against them. But yeah, right. I still think overall that's a good point. Did Pittsburgh have any pre-draft interest in Alec Pierce? Nothing coming to mind in terms of a visit or anything, but we'll want to check that box too.
Definitely. I mean, got pedigree, right? 2nd round guy.
Yeah.
Big guy.
Big guy, 6'3", 211.
What was
he came
his
out
RAS? That's the next question.
Look, I'm assuming very, very good because he ran 4.33, 40.5-inch vertical, 10.9 broad. So I'm going to assume it was excellent.
9.83. Yeah. Boy, that does match up. Yeah, look, that's a sneaky one, Brett.
I like it.
And still on a rookie deal as well, too.
Now that wouldn't come until late August. I assume they want to see how Mitchell looks and develops and guys get healthy, but that could be a move.
From a cap perspective, you don't need to move them. From a health perspective and a depth perspective, you don't need to move them. So if something like that were to happen, you're right. That would probably come a week before the regular season started.
Yeah, I don't see a lot on pre-draft interest, but doesn't mean they can't still have interest in the guy, obviously. So I like that suggestion wholeheartedly.
I would agree there. All right, let's see if we got, what else do we have here we can talk about from a reader? Seth or Sean Irvine writes in, your article today on the wide receiver room mentioned the reasonable candidate list for trade options to beef up the receiver room before the season. 1, are there any reasonable names for a camp cut down list come August? And if so, 2, who would that be, or would that be too late, unreasonable to add a significant player that late in the process anyway? Thanks, guys. Love the podcast. Sean, meet Brett. Brett, meet Sean. Not that Pierce would be a cut candidate there, but I mean, I think if you're looking at reasonable trade options or something like that, I mean, it's hard to go down list of depth chart. I mean, I guess you could and kind of fathom, might this guy be someone that a team tries to trade and all like that. To be honest with you, I think Brett just came up with the next best top of the list, beyond guys like Jennings and Sutton and Slayton. That might be one of the next 1 or 2 guys to add to the list there.
Absolutely. In terms of cut down, I hadn't looked. I usually wait because it depends on who stays healthy and how young guys look. The Colts, does AD Mitchell develop, that kind of stuff? It's really not worth looking at here in May. Would it be too late? I mean, you'd have to, you're trying to catch the moving train at that point. But if your options are to add a guy or not add a guy, eventually that guy will get caught up and you kind of go through some growing pains early on. So Pittsburgh has signed Joe Hayden right before the season. They made some moves right before the year has begun before. So I wouldn't be ideal, but I don't think Pittsburgh would not explore adding a guy just because it's so late in the summer process.
I put this in the Discord channel yesterday, and it's been the theme of this show. They need to add a wide receiver, Alex, and they're going to, damn it.
Yeah, again, I think they've been exploring it. I think they'll continue to explore it. Even Omar and Mike Tomlin have talked about being open to adding, and the fact they're even saying that signals some sort of, probably real desire to do so. To me, it's just been trying to find a dancing partner. I think Pittsburgh wants to dance. They got to find someone to dance with them.
All right, what else? I think we got through some of those. We're running a bit long. What else do you got for me here before we close things out?
On, I think, Sunday, I went deep down the rabbit hole in one of my very, very nerdy Alex articles. Pittsburgh, as you guys know, officially holding the 2026 NFL draft. It'll be the second time Pittsburgh has ever hosted an NFL draft. The last time was the 1948 NFL draft. I have a big, long article talking about what the 1948 NFL draft was like and how it was, as you might expect, very different from from what 2026 will look like in Pittsburgh.
All right, good stuff there. That ought to be a good read.
There were picks drawn out of a hat. There were coin flips. The Steelers did not tell anyone who they drafted, so all those details will be in the article.
Fantastic. All right, shall we get out of here?
Yep, let's wrap things up. We'll come back on Monday.
All right, as Stevie Nicks sang to Lindsey Buckingham in the great song Silver Springs, Alex, you'll never get away from the sound of the woman that loves you. All right.
And who could forget that classic line that we all and I definitely know?
What a great song, Silver Springs. Pull that up later today, everybody
right.
listening, the live version of that. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right, navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button, follow the directions that way. Alex and I will be back on Monday. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.